Hi, welcome back. I'm Don Cleveland, the author of Revitalizing America, a Declaration Against Our Government. But now there's more interesting information. This is the second edition. It's been recently published. So if you want to find out more and more important information about Revitalizing America, get the second edition. A little bit about myself, and that's basically that I do have a graduate degree in political science in the area of policy planning and public opinion. And then beyond that, I've had practical experience in government. I started out by working in an association that represented local governments, and then going from there to become the assistant director of research for a legislature. During that process, I helped rewrite hundreds of bills, was involved in things like the establishment of the first environmental laws passed in many of the states, as well as court reform. So after that job, I went on to become a lobbyist. And I remained a lobbyist for 10 years. During that period of time, I lobbied at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, that is multi-state, and at the federal level. And during that period of time, I was responsible again for writing amendments to and passing hundreds of laws that related to things that affect you in your daily life, including helping to pass major appropriations to federal laws that helped develop our nation. Let's dig back into the Constitution. And as we've already completed a discussion of Article 3, which is the judicial branch of the United States, or the courts, now we're going to take up Article 1, who writes the laws in the United States. As a side note, before addressing Article 1 in its entirety, note that the courts will continue to be a matter of discussion and criticism throughout this presentation. It should be remembered that Congress holds great power over the courts if they choose to exercise that power and don't remain cowardly in using their powers to change the courts to benefit the average person. Now, to help Congress do the right thing, inscribe their websites and telephone numbers into your brains and contact lists and auto dial directories. Things won't move in Congress in the direction of helping the people unless you help them move it along. Call the United States representatives and the senators. Get the information you need to contact them at the following websites and telephone numbers. First of all, for the United States House of Representatives, go to www.house.gov, and the telephone number is 202-225-3121. To contact the United States Senate, go to their website, www.senate.gov, and their telephone number is 202-224-3121. And just as an interesting aside, sometimes they're answered by the same person or staff. But now remember, call when you have a complaint. Call when you're sick and tired. Call when you think you have a solution, because your vote, your voice counts. Remember to use it. Now, there are 535 members in Congress. The United States Senate has 100 of those, and the House of Representatives has 435. But according to OpenSecrets.org, which took its information from the United States Senate Office of Public Records, there are over 12,000 lobbyists registered in Washington, D.C., and in 2022, they publicly admitted spending over $4 billion to lobby Congress and the federal government. Well, how does lobbying work? Well, after 10 years in it, I can tell you how it works very easily. But let me tell you about one of my own experiences. I left my job working for a state legislature in one state to accept the position of chief lobbyist and association executive in another. My wife and I put our house on the market, and I left to take my new job in the capital of the neighboring state. My wife and small children stayed behind to sell the house. A week after starting my job, I had an appointment with a lawyer who'd been lobbying for the group before. When we started the meeting, the lawyer took out his yellow legal pad and started giving me instructions on how to handle or lobby different legislators. His list started by instructing me to take certain legislators and their wives or girlfriends to dinner once a month in a really nice restaurant. The requirements kept increasing with each group of legislators. The next group needed to go to the bars weekly and to dinners in the best private clubs in town. And then on to another group who demanded entertainment as well as the dinners. But they also needed campaign contributions. And finally to the last group, whose members I was instructed to weekly wine and dine them in the private clubs, contribute to their campaigns, and to provide them with prostitutes, who the legislators would select. And oh, Don, by the way, he said, you can participate as well. Well, the next week I had a meeting with my new board of directors who had just hired me. Before getting to the first item of new business, I thought about my wife, my children, my home for sale in the other state, and many of the legislators I had worked with on the job that I had just left. Then I told my new board of directors the first item of new business was my resignation. They were surprised and upset because they had just hired me. They all wanted to know why. So I recited to them the list of instructions I had received from the lawyer lobbyist the week before and said, I refuse to lobby like that. You've hired the wrong person if you expect me to do so. You have my resignation effective today. Luckily, the board of directors took my side, and I launched and maintained an honest lobbying career. So how much did you spend on your congressman or congresswoman last year? Did you have dinner with him or her? Did you even get to shake their hand when they were campaigning? Maybe this helps you understand who writes the laws in our country. Now, Article 1 of the Constitution is probably the longest of the articles in the document. In fact, it is. It is as long as some of the members of Congress who are long-winded when they deliver their speeches. Article 1 creates the legislative power and gives that power to the Congress of the United States. And Congress consists of two houses, the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives. Members of both houses are members of Congress. However, members of the House are addressed as United States representatives, and members of the Senate are addressed as United States senators. Now on to Article 1 of the Constitution. Section 1 of that article says all, get that, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Section 2 deals strictly with the House of Representatives. Bear with me on this, please. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every 2 years by the people of the several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. That means if you could vote for the House of Representatives in your state, you could vote for the United States representative. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained the age of 25 and been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state in which he, what happened to she, shall be chosen. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included, remember we only had 13 at the time, within this union, according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding, get this, the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, indebted servitude, and excluding Indians not taxed, and then 3/5 of all other persons. Those were the slaves. The actual enumeration or census shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years in such a manner as they shall direct by law. The census, right? The number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative, and until such enumeration or census shall be made, the state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3, Massachusetts 8, Rhode Island and the Providence Plantations 1, Connecticut 5, New York 6, New Jersey 4, Pennsylvania 8, Delaware 1, Maryland 6, Virginia 10, North Carolina 5, South Carolina 5, and Georgia 3, the 13 states. When vacancies happen in the representation from any state, the executive authority of the governor shall issue a writ of election to fill the vacancies that have occurred. Now, the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers, and shall have the sole power of impeachment. We've been there, done that, haven't we? Section 3. This section deals with the Senate. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature for 6 years. Note, not a common vote at this time. They're chosen by the legislatures. And each senator shall have 1 vote. Immediately after they shall have assembled in consequence of the first election or selection by legislatures, they shall be divided as equally as may be into 3 classes. The seats of the senators of the first class shall be vacated at the expiration of the 2nd year, the second class at the expiration of the 4th year, and the third class at the expiration of the 6th year. They were staggering terms, so that 1/3 may be chosen every 2nd year, and if vacancies happen by resignation or otherwise during the recess of a legislature of any state, the executive or the governor thereof may make temporary appointments until the next meeting of the legislature, which shall then fill the vacancy. Now, no person shall be a senator who has not attained the age of 30 years, 5 years more than a representative, and been 9 years a citizen of the United States, who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state for which he shall be chosen. Now, the Vice President of the United States shall be the President of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they be equally divided or tied. The Senate shall choose their other officers, and also a President pro tem to serve in the absence of the Vice President, or when he, that is the Vice President, shall exercise the office of the President of the United States. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. Tell the truth, buddy, tell the truth. When the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of 2/3 of the members present, a supermajority. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal of office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to the law. Okay, now the next section, Section 4, deals with elections. Now these are elections of federal officers. And guess what? Listen to this. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. Not Congress, the legislatures of the states. But the Congress may, at any time by law, make or alter such regulations except as to the places of choosing senators. The Congress shall assemble at least once every year, and such meeting shall be on the first Monday of December, unless they shall by law appoint a different day, so Congress can change that. Section 5, how Congress operates. Now listen to this carefully. Each House shall be the judge of the election, returns, and qualifications of its own members, and a majority, listen to that, majority, simple majority, of each shall constitute a quorum to do business, but a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and may be authorized to compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as each House may provide. Each House may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3, another supermajority, expel a member. Each House shall keep a journal of its proceedings, the congressional record, and from time to time publish the same, excepting such parts as may, in their judgment, require secrecy. And the yeas and nays of the members of each House on any question shall, at the desire of 1/5 of those present, be entered on the journal. Now, neither House during the session of Congress shall, without the consent of the other, adjourn for more than 3 days, nor to any other place than that in which the 2 houses shall be sitting. So let's stop for a few minutes and do a brief assessment of what voting requirements are set out in this section. The authors of the Constitution were very specific in telling us when any vote in Congress other than a majority vote is needed. There is nothing in the language describing the operations of Congress that allows one person to hold or stop a vote on legislation before the Congress. Yet we recently saw one U.S. Senator hold or stop the passage of legislation for the United States military. This practice hasn't even been adopted in the rules of the Senate. The practice is unconstitutional, especially since it is a conduct undertaken outside of the rules of the Senate and outside the parameters of the Constitution. This practice must stop. Political parties cannot be allowed to destroy the Constitution. Another strike against the intent of the Constitution is the filibuster, which was initiated about 1837. It is a tactic of talking about any and all subjects, including reading Dr. Seuss on the floor of the Senate to block the passage of legislation. In order to stop a filibuster and bring the bill to a vote, 60 members of the Senate, instead of 51 members, must vote to end it. Again, this is a supermajority which is not specified in the Constitution. The authors of the Constitution were very specific in telling us when anything other than a simple majority vote was needed. If the authors of the Constitution would have wanted another supermajority vote by the House or the Senate, they would have written it into the Constitution, and they didn't. Now, on to Section 6 of Article 1. That's the pay and restrictions for senators and members of Congress. The senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services to be ascertained by law and paid out of the Treasury of the United States. In other words, they can change their pay at any time they want to. They shall, in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest during attendance at the sessions of their respective houses, and in going to and from the same. And for any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. In other words, they can commit libel and slander on the floor and nobody can touch them. No senator or representative shall, during the time for which he was elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of the United States, which shall have been created, or emoluments whereof shall have been increased during such time. And no person holding any office under the United States shall be a member of either house during his continuance in office. In other words, you can't be a member of Congress and hold some position in the federal government as well. We're about halfway through Article 1. And what have we learned about the job our founding fathers did in creating our government? Congress consists of two houses, the United States House and the United States Senate. So both members of the House and the Senate are congressmen or congresswomen. Also, you must be a citizen of the United States to be eligible to be elected to the House or to the Senate, but you can be a naturalized citizen. You do not have to be born in the United States to be eligible to become either a member of the House or the Senate. While members of the House are to be directly elected by the people in each state, senators are selected, or at the time were selected, by their state legislatures of the various states. House members are elected for 2 years and senators for 6 years. The census was established for the sole purpose of apportioning taxes and determining how many United States House members each state would have. And the census counted slaves as 3/5 of a person. Only the House can bring impeachment charges, and only the Senate can try charges to determine the guilt of the impeached party. But if convicted by the Senate, that person shall nevertheless be liable and subject to indictment, trial, and punishment according to the law. Congress must meet once every year, and they are given the power to make their own rules and procedure. Based upon what we discussed before, we really need to ask the question if the Constitution applies to the rules of the House and the Senate. The question is, why not? They really should. Now, the Vice President of the United States is the President of the Senate, but the House elects its own leader, which is called the Speaker. If you are a member of Congress, you can't hold any other paying job in the United States government. Now, don't forget to go to our website, revitalizeamericanow.org, and make a contribution to our cause to help amend the laws so that we can actually bring more of the promises into existence that were made in the Declaration of Independence and the preamble to the Constitution. Also, you'll find on the website the new contract for Congress. Make sure your congressman, congresswoman receives the contract and signs it, and return the signed version to us at our email address, info@revitalizeamericanow.org. Thank you very much.